Hey folks, welcome to this week's live episode of What's Bruin. I'm your host, Chris Nosek, joined by my co-host, as I am every episode now, Dom Tiano. Dom, it's only been a week, but how the hell have you been, my friend? We have a great guest joining us tonight. I'm looking forward to bringing him on in just a second, but first, how are you?
I'm doing great. Glad you have the cookies set aside for me here. I'll try not to eat in front of the camera or the mic. And how are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing all right. I'm actually just starting to have an issue with my audio, but I think that's on my end here. I will look into that as we bring our guest on here. But real quick, just to introduce him, this is Andrew. You've probably seen him on social media. He's starting his own hockey-based campaign. Andrew, I'm going to bring you on real quick. Thanks for jumping on. I'm going to let you share with everyone kind of what it is that you're sharing with Bruins Nation, Hockey Nation, and what you're trying to bring some awareness to.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for having me on. I truly appreciate it. So for Bruins Nation out there, might have seen me the past few weeks or so. I've was diagnosed with a condition when I was younger, about 11 years old, called gastroparesis. And what that is basically the paralyzation of the stomach, meaning I can't eat, digest, or absorb nutrients. Unfortunately, it affects everyone differently. But for me, my two main symptoms were constant nausea and vomiting 10 to 15 times a day. So needless to say, the quality of my life growing up was pretty much non-existent. Luckily, a few years ago, I received a device called a gastric stimulator, which helps. It works like a pacemaker, basically for your stomach, and that has helped me control my symptoms. But unfortunately, the success of the device varies from patient to patient, so there's really no cure for it. So, seeing as I was a lucky one, I created kind of a spin-off of the Ice Bucket Challenge called the Gastroparesis Pie Face Challenge, and I started that in 2016, and every August, which is Gastroparesis Awareness Month, I typically choose a prominent Boston athlete to see if they'd be willing to take my challenge. And this year, I decided to choose Charlie Coyle, which Bruins Nation may have seen the past few weeks. I've been asking pretty much if you have any Bruins mentioned in your profile, or if you are a fan of the Bruins, I'd probably ask you to share it so we can get awareness out there, and hopefully, if we're lucky, maybe get some, a response from Charlie. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, and thank you guys for allowing me to come on and further awareness for gastroparesis.
Our pleasure, Andrew. I think, if I remember correctly, you reached out to me 2 or 3 years ago, and I put you in touch with, I believe it was Jeremy Roligoski of the Bruins.
I believe
Um,
so.
yeah, if
Yeah,
if I
and
remember correctly. So
yep.
I'm glad things are working out for you, and anything else we can do, you just let us know.
I
Absolutely,
appreciate it.
yeah. And if it makes anything helps you at all, it's working, because this is something I had never heard of until I saw your post, and there's definitely some stuff that I'm working on with another project that I have that I want to connect with you on. But it's working, and that's, I think, the number one thing. Honestly, even if it's not you actually getting in touch with Charlie Coyle, those efforts do so. Like you said, you're just tagging so many people, and I don't know how many folks have reached out to you, but using Dom as an example, even if all he did was like it and retweet it, like, that just helps the effort that much more. So, but like you said, we're glad to have you on. As Kevin is saying here, it's an amazing story for you. God has blessed you. Thank you for sharing, and I'm happy to see that you're doing better. We all are. Let's see. Of course, Kevin's also commenting on our new intro video. Kevin, that one probably looks a little familiar for you, but we got some more changes coming to it. But we're able to finally have that put together. He's blaming Dom for the audio issue I was having, so at least it wasn't just me, thankfully. But yeah, Kevin, thanks for letting me know. Made me feel better about my setup. But
I think Kevin couldn't hear over crunching on his Doritos.
probably. So Ryan says, I want to hear Dom talk about Dean Letourneau. So, Ryan, is there something specific about Letourneau that you want to hear Dom talk about? And while we hear back from Ryan, I'm going to ask you, Andrew, what have been your thoughts from the Bruins last season? Obviously, the record-setting season 2 years ago. Obviously, picking Charlie Coyle, you picked him for a reason. You've been a Bruins fan for a while. Kind of just share a little bit of the Bruins journey that you've had as a fan as well.
Sure. So I think what really got me into hockey, it's kind of like, the timing of it is kind of weird, but was one day I'm a huge Red Sox fan. The Red Sox are like my number one, like all-time favorite sports team to follow. And, they happen to be on Nesson as well. And my dad was flipping through the channels when I was younger. And there was a Jack Edwards call. I can't remember the exact call, but I was like, who is this guy? This guy's like insane. And that's where I kind of really fell in love with hockey, was through Jack Edwards, oddly enough. And, I started watching games and became more involved as a fan. My first Bruins game was actually game 6 of the 08 playoffs against the Canadians. I think that was the game where he said, this building is vibrating. And I didn't get to hear the call in person because I was at the game, but that was my very first game. And ever since then, I've always followed the team.
Yeah, they definitely hook you in, and Jack has that effect through the TV somehow. It's unfortunately that he won't be here for this next season, but I think you'll love what Judd Surratt can bring. Dom, I know we talked about it briefly when Jackson announced his retirement. What did you think? Obviously, you're up in Canada. You have a slightly different perspective from the media side of things, knowing now that we have Judd Surratt to replace him from the radio side.
Well, I'm probably older than the two of you put together. So I go back to even here in southwestern Ontario on a good night after dark, we were able to pick up WBZ even way up here. And I grew up with Boston Bruins radio, listening to Bob Wilson. Hockey was on TV just once a week, Hockey Night in Canada. So you never really got to see the Bruins unless they were playing the Leafs or playing Montreal if Toronto was on the road. So I grew up on radio. And then when TV came out and you could find any hockey game, I kind of lost radio. So I've never heard Judd call a game. By all accounts, everybody tells me he's great. So, I'll wait and see. But, sometimes I've got 3-4 hockey games going on at once that I can't have the volume up because it just gets too confusing.
I was going to say, I think last week's show you had 3 games on, plus you were doing the show. So that Kevin wants to know, was Jack's comment, was it about a tumbling muffin or was it about a barn being on fire?
It definitely was probably the tumbling muffin. That's my all-time favorite for sure.
I was going to say that's an all-time Jack Edwards ism. And Kevin wants you to know he's eating Domino's, not burritos.
Oh, I got Domino's for lunch with my grandson today. So there you go.
It's almost like you guys have a very similar stomach. Can't say the same because Kevin's is way deeper. But Ryan just said general thoughts on Dean Letourneau, everything we've seen from him so far. No worries, Ryan. This is a hockey show. We use hockey to help raise this awareness. So we're just grateful that Andrew's able to join us for as long as he is tonight. If he has to get going, he'll let us know. But we usually rock and roll here every week. I do want to give you a shout out to Dom, because I don't know, you can notice Ryan's comment is from Twitter. We are back on Dom's Twitter stream here. So I do want to shout out Dom for biting the Elon bullet for us and signing up for the whatever. I don't know why there's a difference between US and Canada when it comes to premium.
Well, actually, I'm good friends with Elon Musk. So but Musk said he wouldn't give it to me for free. So I called Donald Trump and he put in a word for Musk last night during the interview, and I woke up this morning and there was the blue check mark.
There we go. Lots of benefits there. So
Yeah.
But Dom and Andrew, I want to get your thoughts too. I don't know how much you paid attention to the draft and some of the younger players and stuff, but any thoughts that you have on Dean Letourneau, and then I'll turn it over to Dom for his, because I know he's got a lot of thoughts.
As far as draft goes, I didn't watch too much of the draft, so I'd go back to Dom on that one.
Have you gotten into the Providence Bruins at all yet?
No, just the big B's.
You're still on the beginning Bruins journey, so we'll let it slide. It's totally okay. You'll get there though, I promise. Especially with some of the other young ones coming up through the system. So, Dom, I'll let you take over the general thoughts on Dean Letourneau so far.
Well, people aren't going to like me for saying this, but people need to hold their horses a little bit here. Letourneau is a high risk, high reward player. That's the best way to put it. His floor, we'll see him in the NHL. His ceiling, we'll see him as a number one center. There's a large gap there between the floor and the ceiling. He's only the second player ever to get drafted out of Canadian high school into the NHL.
That's rare company.
Rare company. So,
do you know who the other one was off the top of your head? I
forget his name. He went on and had a decent NHL career.
Well, I'll take a decent career for Dean Letourneau. I'll take that.
So I see people penciling him in as the Bruins' number one prospect right now. And I won't go there. He hasn't played a game outside of Canadian high school. He's played 2 games in the USHL. And as a matter of fact, I was watching highlights of them earlier today. Let's let the guy get not just a game, get a season in with Boston College and see where he is after the season. I am currently doing my preseason reports on Bruins prospects. It should come out in the next couple of weeks. You know how it goes, Chris. I try and predict point totals and everything.
Half the time you're within 3.
Yeah. But Letourneau, I don't have a formula for Letourneau because never has there been a Canadian high school player drafted into the NHL go into the NCAA.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a learning curve there. And Kevin's comment here, he's coming from prep school. He may have dominated there, but you have to wait and see how he translates to the college game before being able to give a real assessment. Sometimes having Kevin in the comments is just too – he gets to things before we do. But yeah, he hits that one on the head.
I think there's only one player that the Bruins have ever drafted that I have come out and said – he immediately becomes Boston's top prospect. And that was on a podcast I was doing at the time with Kirk Luedeke. So we're going back several years. And like Kirk asked me, he says, what do you think? I said, I think Charlie McAvoy becomes the Bruins' number one prospect automatically and clearly. And that's the only one I've ever bumped up there right after the draft. Like, you have to see what these players have got. And, there are some that are saying, like I've seen people say he's going to be one and done at Boston College. And I see others say he's never going to be more than a third line center.
Yeah, I think like Kevin said, you really got to see how it translates to the next level. I mean, just based on his size alone, he's a man playing among little
Yeah,
boys.
it was Jankowski. Jason's
And
got it.
I was gonna say Jason's comment here. Jankowski was drafted from high school.
Yeah.
But to your point, predicting the numbers and stuff, it's a lot easier, I bet, in year 2 once you have seen some of that game translating from their previous level, their previous country, wherever it was, and it's just that second year of statistics. I mean, from like I would say pump the brakes to the point where expect him to be a 5-year project. Anything earlier than that is awesome, but expect him to be a 5-year project. Could he be ready sooner? Yes. But that's the same type of thing we were saying about Matthew Poitras. Expect him to take a while, but he was ready earlier because he worked his ass off and got himself to that point.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because the video of Letourneau doing his workout this offseason, I don't know if it went viral, but it was big on YouTube, right?
It was
And
close.
I'm telling you, a year ago, I was on this show as just watching, and I said, "Don't sleep on Matthew Poitras," and Matthew Poitras' workout puts this Dean Letourneau workout to shame.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't. All I'm saying is people when he was first drafted looked at Matthew Poitras and said similar things as far as an extreme. It could be he could be this, he could be that, and then you saw him play a little bit. You see an off season, and then all of a sudden at 19 he's making the National Hockey League. Like, yes, I know you predicted it, Dom. You said it was possible. All right, but you were, I would say, probably the only one. I don't think anybody else was saying, watch out for this kid. I don't know anybody else that I can think of until training camp started and he started physically turning people's heads. I don't think anybody else uttered his name. So I know it started with you. Ryan does want to know how you think Letourneau compares to a guy like Justin Brazeau. Now, I will say, we watched Brazeau last year in the playoffs. Dom, you and I have talked about how he kept getting beat to the puck, losing board battles. Letourneau is a much, much better skater. So he will get to those board battles sooner and quicker. The question is, can he win them? And when you're 6'4", 6'5", going up against guys who are 5'3.5", yes, you're going to win those board battles every damn time. Let's see how he does against actual grown men. But he compares better to Brazeau because his skating and his footwork is better.
Oh, definitely.
By a mile.
It's not even close. Not even close.
I know there's a lot of prospect talk, and that's what the questions always come in for, Andrew. But who are you most excited for yourself to see coming into this season?
Easily Poitras. Easily. I'm
very
excited.
Your new favorite there?
I don't know. Give him a few years, but Brad's still my number one, and then we got Coyle. But definitely Poitras. I think having a full season under his belt, I think would be awesome to see. And I'm excited with the new additions too. I miss the Bruins, and I know everyone says it, but the enforcer type Bruins that we used to have. I feel like I'm an old timer saying that, but with the I feel like my dad, but I think that elements of physicality is what we've been missing the past few years, and hopefully we can get over the hump of Florida.
I definitely think we brought in at least one guy who will help with that in Zadorov.
Yeah. So, definitely. I'm excited to see him.
I'm looking forward to seeing Lindholm back in a top line role with wingers who actually can do what they're supposed to with a goal scorer like Pasta. And we got Kevin chiming in, 5'3". He was playing against elementary school kids. Kevin, that's exactly kind of my point. So they probably were like 5'3.5" when they were jumping. So it just lots to look forward to there. Dom, this season, if you had to pick one thing that you were trying to keep your eye on for the duration of the season, what would that one thing be?
One thing.
Like if you're going to go into every game and take notes blindly, not look at the notes from the last game, like what's that one thing you're going to look at to try and see from beginning to end of the year?
Improvement in not only improvement, but a steady power play. To me, that's going to be the key to the Boston Bruins season.
You took mine.
Sorry.
No, no, you're not. It's okay though. I can't agree more. I mean, last year we struggled mightily with that. Let's see. Dan says Dom's sporting the poor boy cap. He's been wearing it the last couple weeks. So
yeah, that's my new thing now.
Yeah, I love it, and right now I'm the odd man out. Andrew's got his Bruins hat on too, so and the shirt to match. So I at least got the shirt on. So
I've got a Bruins t-shirt and Bruins shorts on. So
he's got his feet.
I'll take his word on the shorts. I don't.
I'm not going to stand up. I'm too lazy.
Me too, actually. No, I couldn't agree more with you on the power play. Let's see. Kevin says for me, it's Lindholm, new Lindholm, not old. He's going to be under magnifying glass. Kevin, I actually would say probably the old Hampus Lindholm more than Elias, simply because I don't know about you, Andrew, but all the complaints of Hampus Lindholm's game last year, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they make those adjustments. Because at least in my opinion, I don't know how much of it you saw. He went from being a very offensive-based defenseman 2 years ago to extreme heavy defensive minutes, and I'm hoping this year we can see a little bit more of a balance. What do you think?
Definitely. I would love to see him become more involved, like you said, in the offensive game. I feel like, watching him throughout the season, he's more of a stay-at-home defenseman, just kind of developed over the season. So I'd like to see him, kind of go back to that offensive style, like you were saying.
I love the pairing, the shutdown pair that he and Carlo formed last year. Dom, you and I talked a lot about that during the year. I think it started to get to Hampus a little bit, and if they can open him up a little bit and kind of free him from that burden of only being a shutdown guy on the left side. I love the addition of Zadorov for that as well. Kevin says people are going to be more focused on 28 because of the contract and how he slots on the top line. He will have a spotlight on him. Absolutely, Kevin. But I also think that's a very easy target for people to go to. So let's see. Dan says there's a long history of those hats in his family, so he loves it. Jason wants to know, we'll do a little round here. Andrew, we'll start with you. Who do you think plays net front on the power play this year? Or who would you like to see?
I would like to see, I don't know. I'd like to see one of the younger guys get it. I'm a big Patra fan, so but he's going to make that big jump. He's not quite ready yet. I don't know. I would say, I'm trying to think, up front, I wouldn't mind seeing. I don't know.
There's pros and cons to a lot of names.
I know. I'm trying to
you're thinking, I'm so glad I picked to go last on this one. Dom, let's do your answer.
Here's my power play setup to begin the season. Pasta in Pasta's spot.
Naturally.
Pick your choice on the blue line, whether it's Mac or whether it's Lindholm or Lorei or McAvoy.
Oh, Lorai's a good one.
Lindholm in the bumper, Marchand in the old DeBrusque spot, and Matt Patra on the right side half wall.
Interesting.
I was watching highlights of all sorts of people, all sorts of prospects, players all day today, and watching Patra in that Marchand spot thread passes to the Pasternak side for easy one-time goals. And I mean, I was calling for it last year, so it's nothing new.
No, I know we were talking about it a lot last year, and I think being in his second year, you're more likely to see Poitras put in that spot. I love the idea of starting with Lindholm on the first power play unit, letting Lohrei work his way up to take that spot. I do think it'd be long term better to have Lohrei on it, but I think to start you have to make the kid earn it, if that makes sense. I don't know. I got no real major critiques to that lineup, but I mean, if you're going to throw someone net front, I also wouldn't mind seeing a guy like Freddie or Geeky, big body guy who can find the back of the net.
Yeah, but then you got to take somebody off of mine. Like, let's not forget Marchand played that spot.
Yeah,
before.
no, for sure. And I think if you can get Hampus Lindholm in that bumper spot where Bergeron used to be, then it almost morphs back into what you used to have. Not obviously saying Lindholm is Bergeron, because we all know he's not, but it gets you closest to what you had with that setup. And then obviously your second power play unit's going to, have your Coils, Freddie, that whole Zaka. Let's see.
They'll have two defensemen back there.
And then Dan asks, who's consensus 2C? Zaka, Dark Horse, Poitras. Would love seeing Coyle back at 3C.
Coyle's consensus right now.
Yeah. I think we as fans kind of get caught up in the 1C, 2C, 3C title. They look at it as what will be the Lindholm line, the Coyle line, Poitras line, and we'll call it the fourth line for now because we really don't know who's going to center it, but it could end up being the Kostelic line. It could be the Beecher line. Like, they just refer to it in kind of that sense. So, if you can get the vernacular of 2C, 3C out of your mind, the lineup doesn't look as, I don't want to say as weak, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm making any sense with that.
NHL.com asked people what they thought of Boston's top six for opening night, and they had Zaka, Lindholm, and Pasternak as line one, Marchand, Coyle, and Lysell as line two.
Which is very likely. It's possible. I think they're going to give Lysell every opportunity to lose that second line, quote unquote, right wing spot. Blue Jays, Bills, Bruins, Boatsman says, Dom, you have said that Poitras' compete level is high. Who do you compare to his compete level to on the team? Same as Marshy, more or less. Anybody else? Who else would you compare him to as far as his compete level?
Brad Marchand, for sure. 100%.
I think Andrew likes that answer.
Definitely. This is my guy.
Well, we're just talking compete level. We're not talking skill or anything, right?
And based on the question, yeah, that's what we're talking about. Yeah. So, but I mean, let's face it, Poitras got a high skill level too. So, let's see. G Wally says definitely a better power play, but I want to see a consistent, heavy, hard game. Be the hammer, not necessarily fights, but let opponents go home feeling it. To your point, Andrew. Not
First of all, hi Wally. Hope you're doing well, buddy. And yeah, I do not see this team not being the hammer this year.
Yeah. And now they have someone who can kind of lead that charge from the blue line in Zadorov. Not that you didn't have guys before, but you needed McAvoy to do other things. You needed Lindholm to do these other things. So let's see. Dan also says their genuine net front was JVR. They don't really have one now. Let's see. BG says Frederick or Brazeau to the net front presence.
They'll be given a shot. They're like, one thing we got to remember is Jim Montgomery is without a contract after this upcoming season. So he needs wins. And we're going to see mixing and matching like we've never seen before until he gets the combo he wants out there.
Yeah, and Andrew, I want to come back to a question for you here. But Dan says Freddie's early performance is key for him, and he's looking for a promotion. Dom and I have gone back and forth. We've talked a lot about having Trent Frederick on Coyle's right side on that second line right wing spot. What are your thoughts on that versus a guy like Liesel? Are you rooting one way or the other as the fan that you are? Kind of where are your thoughts on that?
I would lean towards Frederick. I like Frederick's game, and I think he works well in tandem on that line with it would probably be Brad and Coyle, just projecting it out from now. But I would like to see him on that right wing, second line right wing spot for sure. I just like the way that he is streaky at times, but I think when he's on his game, and I think maybe having the pressure off of Coyle maybe. Not having to be that first line center, might help open up the opportunities for obviously Brad and himself, Frederick. I mean, sorry.
Yeah, Dom.
I'll tell you why I think it's not that I'm hesitant, but why the Bruins might be hesitant about putting Frederick up there is because you've now created a hole on left wing. Are you giving Merkulov a chance there? Because Liesel won't be third line left wing. Merkulov won't be third line left wing if Matt Patra is third line center.
Right. You and I have talked about Max Jones being on that left side, though.
Max Jones could go up there. But now you've wiped out any possibility of Merkulov or Liesel making the team.
Yeah, which, I mean, obviously the 13th forward role is still up for grabs at that point, but you don't really want one of those kids being the 13th forward. It just doesn't suit their game.
No, it doesn't.
Well, they're better off getting minutes down in Providence, but if they go that route, people are going to bitch about the Providence time. And I don't know, at a certain point, you got to reward the player for doing the work. So,
you could put Geeky on there.
Yeah, I think projection wise, you would have Geeky. You could put Geeky on the left, but then what do you do on the right?
True.
Because I think projection wise, everybody has Geeky penciled in on the right, but he can play both sides. So, would you consider doing Liesel third line right wing at that point?
There's no way Montgomery's going to put Patra and Liesel or Merkulov on the line. Not going to happen.
I don't see it either, but if they hit it off well enough and it works.
It's a defensive liability.
Yeah,
with all three of them. All three of them have a ways to go defensively.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And another name that I don't know how much we're really putting stock. I mean, blue line wise, they did bring in the veteran Osterley as well. I mean, he got 22 games last year. Do you even see him sniffing the roster this year?
Oh no, I think their defense is set. The seven we saw in the playoffs, or the 6 we saw in the playoffs, plus the Zadorov.
I will say this too, Andrew. You're talking about the physicality of the team. Someone that I want you to start looking out for on the blue line, Jackson Edward.
Jackson Edwards. Okay. I don't know too much about him.
Watch those Providence games.
Dom, why don't you give Andrew a little background, we'll call it, on Jackson Edward from his OHL time?
He'll beat the shit out of anybody, literally.
I love it.
Like he's not afraid to drop the gloves with anybody. I mean, he would drop the gloves against Nikita Zadorov.
Wow.
Probably tomorrow if he had to.
Or probably tomorrow. He'd probably do it in training camp if it meant he could win a spot on the roster.
I know what I'm doing after. I'm looking up Jackson Edwards fight clips.
Nobody will fight him. Like it was in the OHL, nobody would fight him. So,
I'd be interested to see him go up against a guy like Arbor Jackeye
well, he went to go up against his brother, who was voted the toughest. Players I talked to voted him the toughest player in the Ontario Hockey League. Jackson Edward came second, and I would ask those same players who they'd want to see in a fight, and they said Jackeye versus Edward. And I was at a game one night. It was going to happen. They were like nose to nose, and the referees wouldn't let it happen. It's like, fuck, that pissed me off.
Oh, we were robbed.
We were robbed.
Wally adds in, Freddie does need to take a step. He, for some reason, always leaves me wanting or expecting more. So,
But he's right. You know,
He's right.
If you remember the playoffs against the Leafs, I put out a tweet that basically said, I just wish Trent Frederick had the heart of Trevor Kuntar.
Yes, I remember that.
Somebody must have read it to him, because after that, it lit a fire under his ass.
Yeah, when we say Dom's connected, that's the kind of connection we have.
But Wally's right. There are nights that he leaves you wanting more.
Nights, there are weeks upon weeks sometimes where you're just like, get there, fucking get there. You know, and I think some of it is he's probably feeling the weight of needing to bring that physicality constantly and leading the charge. And with a guy like Zadorov who just does it, he's not going to be looking over to a guy like McAvoy being like, are you going to do it tonight, or am I going to do it tonight? Or is this person going to do it tonight? Like, it gets done, and then it's let's fucking go. You know?
Okay, but now that you have Zadorov, you have Jones, you have Kostelic. If we don't see it from Frederick, what's the excuse then?
Andrew, that's to you, because I got nothing.
Frederick, like, to me, it was like a DeBrusque 2.0 in that, like, he's so streaky. Like like, you know, G. Wally said here, there's always that wanting more. He'll, you know, I feel like for years I've been watching him, and it's like, all right, he's almost there, and then nothing. Almost there, and then nothing. It's just, he's one of those players that, like, he has that potential, but you just got to get it out of him. And I think, you know, like you said, that for years it's been him or McAvoy in terms of who's going to lay the hammer down. So hopefully
consistency. That's what you want,
right,
Andrew. Consistency.
Right.
And let's see. Kevin says Freddie needs a Kevin pep talk. So a lot of mumbles and a free burrito. I don't know how that's
Dominoes,
or Dominoes, I guess. Jason says it's going to be an interesting camp with lots of toughness. Guys like Toft and Jones could become popular among fans. I mean, I definitely agree with that, Jason. I mean, think about this fan base. They got overly attached to AJ Greer because he showed a little bit of physicality. So I think fans are going to love Jones. They'll love Toft. Dan has a good question here. What are we thinking in terms of number of starts for Jonas Korpisalo?
I would say 27 to 30.
Andrew, are you in the same ballpark, more or less?
I may be about 20. I'd like to see Sway with a little bit more of a workload.
I'm actually going to go a little higher than that. I think they'll actually try to get him closer to the 30 to 35 range. So somewhere in that 32, I think, is where they'll target 32 or 33, in my opinion. I think, you know, Korpisalo gets a really bad rap for Ottawa last year, but he has had really good moments in his career overall. He's not untalented. I mean, this guy he went to the Kings to be a starter. He was a starter in Columbus. He was a starter in Ottawa. And it wasn't just because the other guys sucked. It's because the team honed in on him. That's three teams that have seen something in this guy that says he can start for us. And none of those teams have had goalie Bob. the goaltending whisperer, we call him. So there's definitely a there, as they would say. And I think, he'll get acclimated quite well. He himself is revamped mentally and ready for this restart. He's not going to be or have the pressure of turning a franchise around, being the guy going into the playoffs or any of that. So I think you'll get some really solid play out of him. He'll be able to play more than we're expecting. And I don't think they want to drive Swayman into the ground, especially in year one of what might end up being a very, very long contract. So Kevin says no one is expecting 30 goals and 70 points from Freddie, so just focus on hitting 30, 40 points and being a pest to round out the Frederick talk there. So
I don't know. I watch other podcasts and they say that he's easily a 50-point guy on the second line.
I could see him getting there.
I could see him getting there too, but
absolutely. He also adds Freddie doesn't have the skill and potential of a DeBrusk. That was what was so maddening about DeBrusk. Freddie just needs consistency, show up every game, and he'll be fine. I mean, offensive-wise, DeBrusk definitely had a better ceiling. I think all around game-wise, though, they're not as far off as many seem to believe. I think, offensive wise, you'd get more points out of DeBrusk, but I do think you can get a better defensive player out of Frederick. And so they're more close overall in that middle ground. I don't know what you guys
I think they both lack consistency.
Oh yeah, no,
that's the issue.
Aside, that's their common trait right there.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jason says, I think Freddie is gone after this year. I don't think Sweeney has liked him having his hand forced in firing Cassidy. I mean, then his Montgomery would have to be gone too, because Freddie and Montgomery have had previous, coaching player relationship. So you're losing them both guaranteed at that point if that's the route you're going. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
Dan says Freddie's trajectory has been elevated every year. A promotion to second line gets him 50 points this year. If he's there all year, yeah, I would think so. I mean, in my opinion anyway. Dom, sounds like you guys agree, disagree?
He could, but until he does it, he hasn't done it. Just like Jake DeBrusk is not a 30-goal scorer because he's never done it.
Yep, it's the consistency. If you don't have it, then he could do it, but it just he hasn't shown it.
I watched Bobby Orr from his first game to his last game, and Bobby Orr wasn't a 100-point defenseman until he did it. Even though he was the greatest player to ever play the game, so Wayne Gretzky was never a 200-point player.
I was just thinking the same exact thing.
Until he did it.
Yep.
So
Ovechkin's not the all-time leading goal scorer until he passes Gretzky.
Hey, by the way, can I say something about Alex Ovechkin?
Sure.
Poor guy trying to catch Wayne Gretzky for the all-time scoring lead. And how long is he going to hold on to it for? Just a few years, because Austin Matthews is coming to break it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about this too. At least in my opinion, he'd already have it if it wasn't for 2 lockouts and COVID.
Right. But Matthews is still going to break it.
Yeah, probably.
Definitely. There's no stopping.
Not yet, anyway. Real quick, Wally did chime in. He says, I think Jonas will get high 20s. Sweeney said that number 1 needs 55. That was part of the year-end talks. Sway and Linus both wanted 55 games. So
that seems about right.
I think that's their ideal, but I mean, are you going to really argue if you can rest Sway a little bit more? Like, I wouldn't complain about it. Look what he just did this past year because you rested him. Like, Anyway,
I don't know. If he wants the games, you sort of got to give it to him.
so Dom, you mentioned Austin Matthews. We talked a little bit about Ovechkin, but that's a great segue. We've got about 45 minutes left in the show tonight. I want to get both of you guys' thoughts on the Atlantic overall. Dom, this came up a little bit last week and the week before as far as, where the team might land in the standings and stuff. And I got to tell you guys, I have been trying to work out some power rankings for my Puck Off show. And my God, this year they are a bitch to do.
Well, what a day to pick, right? Because we see the Tampa Bay Lightning are for sale for almost $2 billion. We see Austin Matthews named the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, with the C coming off of John Tavares' jersey. We also had 2 offer sheets today.
That can't
signed.
they mathematically can't be matched.
Well, they can.
They're already over the cap though, so they
can exceed the cap 10% in the summertime and worry about getting under after. So they can match. Those that say that Edmonton can't match are wrong. They can.
I said they almost can't match. Almost.
They can match. They have no problem matching.
And
where they would have a problem is getting under the cap afterwards.
Yes, there you go. And right before we jumped on the show, the Nashville Predators traded Cody Glass to Pittsburgh.
Right. That was the other one. So I look at the Atlantic finishing like this: Florida, Boston, Toronto, Tampa, Detroit.
You got the last 3 for us there, Dom?
Oh, no, not that. That's the end. Whether Tampa and Detroit get in as wild cards, whole different story.
I was going to say, the reason why I'm asking is because literally that is exactly how the top 5 finished last year. So you're seeing no change, maybe point totals change. But Andrew, you got something there?
No, I mean, they're all strong contenders, and I don't see anything changing really. I mean, like you said, the point totals change here and there, but they're all here for the next few years. This is there. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And
it's going to be the top 3: Florida, us, and Maple Leafs is going to be.
So
not going anywhere soon.
I said it last year, Dom. You know where I'm going with this. And I will say it again this year. Coming first is going to be the Bruins. I was wrong on the last day of the year last year, off by 1 point. I am willing to take the gamble again this year. And not because Bruins fandom has the ultimate takeover. It doesn't. Florida has a lot more turnover than Boston does. And
I know. Florida has more key turnovers. But not turnovers.
We also have learned that we can't get 2 consistent seasons out of Bobrovsky since he went to Florida. He'll play okay over the duration of the year, but his inconsistencies will be there. They have a new number 2 goaltender there. And see, Kevin, you said that last year too. He says the Bruins are going to be a wild card team. You said that last year too, Kevin. So no, I think too many people are also discounting what Jonas Korpisalo will do for this team. Toronto's defense is absolute trash. They didn't do anything to make it better. They just recycled garbage for more garbage. And honestly, I think they got worse in goal overall. Wall is projected to be really good. I don't think he's quite there yet, and he's always injured. So until he proves he can put together a healthy season, I don't consider him a threat. And beyond that, they really don't want to use Dennis Hildeby. Why not? Well, either he's not ready or they just don't have faith in the kid. And he's just not ready right now. But I just don't. He says, I'm doubling down, though, if you are. Yeah, I am too, Kevin. Tampa Bay, they gutted without Stamkos. I think Vasilevsky will be on a tear. He's definitely going to be a finalist for the Vezina, but I don't see them outranking Florida or Boston. I just don't. Yeah, they could be fighting for a wild card. I mean, as good as Vasilevsky can play, their defense can play that much worse. They don't have a lot of depth. They'll make some moves throughout the year to get better, but okay, fine. But as they did that, they get a little weaker. Toronto's defense got weaker. Detroit got a little better. Buffalo got a year older. Now, does that mean they're going to go from 84 points to 99 making the playoffs? No, I really don't think so. But they're better, which means somebody has to lose a couple extra games to those teams. And if I had to pick between Toronto and Boston, I'm not picking Boston. I'm really not. But it just, once you get to the teams like Buffalo, Ottawa, Montreal, I got no idea what the fuck to do with those guys. I really don't.
As much as I hate to say it, Montreal is doing some real good things.
I just don't
real
see
good
it clicking this year, though.
No, but
like 2 years away from being a year away.
No, I don't think they're that far away. Montreal is doing some really good things. Really good things.
I long term, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I just don't see it. I think it will benefit them long term. And Andrew, I think you'll enjoy getting those rivalries back.
Definitely. So it hasn't been the same.
No.
I saw an interesting poll on Twitter asking about the Bruins' rivalry with Montreal. And here's the thing. Rivalries are built off playoffs, not regular season. And with Montreal being as bad as they have been lately, not being in the playoffs except the bubble year, going to the final, which was a joke in itself. Unless the Bruins meet them in the playoffs, that rivalry ain't coming back to what it was. You can play them 8-10 times in the regular season, and it doesn't matter. It's not coming back until they meet in the playoffs. That's why the rivalry with Toronto is so strong right now, because of the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, think about the Florida they have with Tampa.
With Florida, with Tampa. It's all based on playoffs.
True.
I don't know. It's I don't miss seeing them in the playoffs. I really don't.
Neither do I.
It's always fun to watch. I mean, Kevin sits here saying, I got a year older too. Kevin, we all fucking did. All right. We know how age works.
Not me. I get younger now by the day.
Oh, you Benjamin Button it. Okay.
Yeah.
The difference between Kevin getting a year older and the Sabres getting a year older, though, is they're both just as far away from winning a Stanley Cup as they were the year before.
Yeah. I was going to use a different analogy when it came to Kevin, but that'll do.
No, Dom, you go ahead.
No, that'll do.
Was it food or burrito related?
Yeah, it was food related.
Yes. I mean, I will say this, Kevin, because I do miss it a little bit, but I will say when it comes to seeing Toronto in the playoffs or Montreal in the playoffs, give me Toronto every fucking time because you just know you're going to beat them.
Or you want to be the ones to beat them, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's see. Kevin says I'm pretty close. I'm in the playoffs on NHL 24. Jason, to me, Montreal will always be enemy number one.
To some people, it's Montreal. To some, it's Pittsburgh. To others, it's Toronto now. I think the younger fans may be leaning towards Toronto because let's face it, some of the kids today have never seen a Boston-Montreal playoff.
Yeah, no kidding. Don't remind me. Oh, God, Dom, way to make me feel old.
I'm talking real young kids, but they've seen what, 3 Boston Torontos?
Listen, my daughter's going to be in high school in like 4 weeks, not even. All right? Stop aging me. I will say there is one underrated opponent that I'm looking forward to. Wally says ampersand at money hashtag the Habs.
In other words, fuck the Habs.
I agree with you there, Wally. There is one opponent though in the East. I'm looking extremely just in the East right now that I'm really looking forward to seeing the physical battle between. And I think this opponent's going to go under the radar for a lot of people. The Flyers.
Mm-hmm.
The physicality is going to be back between those two teams. And the Flyers are right on the edge. So
the 70s, man, bring it back. Terry O'Reilly, Taz versus Dave the Hammer Schultz. Wally will tell you about those.
Oh boy,
man! If they were on TV and those two dropped the gloves, everybody in the house was standing up ready to watch that one go.
And I got to ask Andrew, has there been one in particular, whether it's a hit, a fight, anything like that during your time as a fan of the Bruins that you just always think of when it comes to that kind of thing?
Oh yeah, it was Lucic and Komisarek. That one. That's my all-time favorite.
Yep, there was that one. I'll never forget too the Zdeno Chara putting Pacioretty into the stanchion up in Montreal. Just like
the craziness that ensued.
The fact that they shut down the 911 line because they wanted him arrested. That always hit the humor for me. Where just Kevin says I'd go so as far as to say that Florida is a bigger rival to Boston right now over Montreal. Yeah,
I'd agree
because they see him in the fucking playoffs. We're talking about the playoffs.
Yeah.
Wally said Sanderson said if ever we're betting on anything, it's Taz versus the Hammer happening.
Oh yeah. Yeah. To me, those were the best fights.
All right. Well, I've got. I know, Dom. We mentioned a couple of the deals that went on just before and earlier today. Actually, since you mentioned it, Toronto's stripping Tavares of the captaincy.
I don't think they really stripped him of it. Tavares was involved in the whole process right from the beginning, and I just think of the days immediately following Tavares leaving the Islanders, how Islanders fans would say to Leaf fans, good luck, you're never going to win anything with him as your captain.
Yeah.
And,
so far that's come to fruition. But Andrew, you and I both know that he was not on board with it. I mean, come on.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely not. I mean, anytime you get the C stripped away, it's got to hit you somewhere,
I wonder how much it was actually just kind of putting on good faith for it. I mean, it's gonna hurt you. Do you guys think this makes them better or just more of the same as far as the way the team operates, functions, is led out? Do you guys seeing this making any difference?
I don't know that it makes difference on the ice. Like Tavares, give him credit. When things went bad for the Leafs, he was always there to face the media constantly, day in, day out. I don't know if Austin Matthews is built for that. Because Toronto media really is a whole different world than what every other franchise is accustomed to. So
I believe that for sure.
I don't know that Matthews is made to deal with that. And Tavares did a good job for them in that area. On the ice, I don't know. I can see it making a difference. There remains to be seen. But Steve's right. They just want to sell more jerseys.
Yeah, I'm about to pull that one up. But I will give Kevin credit for this one too. He says, except Tavares being captain was never the problem. Switch letters all you want. You're not winning until you focus on defense and goaltending over stacking the top of your forward group. I will say this though. Does this move make it easier to move Tavares off of your roster and do it in a way that's maybe eating some salary and just getting rid of the player? Because now you're not trading him as your captain. You're trading him as your former captain.
I don't know. I used to think Treliving was a good general manager. My opinions changed this offseason.
I mean, he's made some questionable decisions. So, and that goes all the way back to when he was still in Calgary too.
Yeah.
So, I will say this: the Tkachuk trade wasn't one of them, in the sense that he had a player who wanted out, and he got a winger who just had a historical season for a winger in Huberdeau, and he got a top pairing defenseman in Uyghur. Like, you did all right based on what the numbers were. Everything else went to shit.
Yep.
But the trade wasn't the problem. I just think Calgary in general has gone to shit, and everything aside from that is just putting a Band-Aid on the Hoover Dam. Kevin says Tavares is going nowhere without at least 35% retention and salary, which I believe Toronto has a retention spot that they can do it.
Oh yeah, they've got 3.
I couldn't remember if they were using one, if any, but I mean,
I don't know that 35% would be enough.
I don't know either. But if you're trying to free up some money, if you're Toronto, to address the forwards, the defense, and Tavares isn't valueless when it comes to a trade.
No, but I'm not paying full value and picking up 65% of that contract.
Oh, fuck.
No way.
Fuck no. But if I'm another team that's looking at Tavares going, hey, get another team involved that's willing to retain additional salary, we will have a conversation about it. You could see a third team get involved. Like San Jose can't do it because they're
but at that point though, Chris, you're paying teams to take it, and which now defeats the purpose of getting rid of the player to improve the team.
They're getting a defenseman back that they need.
How do you know they're getting a defenseman back?
I said if. I'm just trying to give them the benefit of the doubt of at least.
But you can't. Like Tavares' value, when you're talking about bringing in a third team to take on salary, it may cost Toronto a first-round pick.
I didn't say it was a smart move.
Okay, so. And
you just said Treliving's a bad GM. Bad GMs make dumb decisions.
No, I said I used to think he was good, but my opinion changed this. I never called him bad.
No, but you definitely didn't use inflection that made you seem like he got better.
Right.
Let's see. Jason wants to know what's going on with Hakanpää. I remember the deal being announced, but supposedly he failed the physical. I've heard his knee is basically just bone on bone at this point.
Yeah, it's obviously if he failed the physical, there's no trade.
A free agent signing.
Hakanpää. Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I would expect that deal to not occur.
No, I don't think the contract ever got registered either.
I doubt it. So Anyways, we've got about 20 minutes or so left. Like I said, I circled back to Toronto just because I got nothing else on my docket here.
Well, what about the news today from Charlie Jacobs?
Let's see. Down. What do you mean, Wally? Down goes me. What did I do? I don't get it. Anyway, nope, that was on your docket, Dom. So we'll go to that real quick. Andrew, I apologize. This is going to slap you right in the face on the screen, but I do want to pull it off. The WEI Jimmy Fund has been going on all day, and they had was it Charlie Jacobs on?
Charlie Jacobs, yeah.
So obviously, naturally, they asked him about what was going on with some Swayman contract negotiations and stuff like that. And Dom actually grabbed this nice little screenshot from the Nesson article where he was quoted saying, "I try not to comment on player personnel contract negotiations. We are still negotiating with Sway. Let's see. I hope that he's ready to play come training camp. We have some things to work out. I'm sure we'll get there." And then he added that if there was any unfinished business for the Bruins this summer, it was signing Swayman to a contract extension. This was in an interview he did on Gresh and Fourier with WEEI, or on WEEI. So I will bring Andrew back on the visually here, and we'll drop that off. Andrew, as a fan, let's get your reaction to that quote first.
I mean, I don't even know why it's a question, why it's even taken this long. Like, it should have been done, especially after trading Linus. I mean, it's ridiculous that it's, in my opinion, that it's at least gone on this long. It should be done. Give him what he needs. Call it a day. Like, you have no one else after that. Like, I just don't get it.
Do you feel better about the situation knowing that the owner and acting president or the acting owner of the team is sitting here saying, I think it'll get done.
Nope.
We're working on it. We're actively talking to him about it. It doesn't make you feel any better at all.
No, I mean, they've been actively working on it for what? The entire summer? Like, what else
Well,
is there?
that's not true, Andrew. They haven't. Because they had free agency to deal with. They had the draft to deal with. So there was no negotiation going on at the time. The Hlinka Gretzky just finished. Everybody from the Bruins organization was in Edmonton getting ready for next year's draft, watching that tournament. There was no negotiations going on then. And Swayman himself was overseas at Pasternak's wedding. There was no negotiations going on then. And guys are entitled to take vacations, and that includes Don Sweeney. So they haven't really been negotiating all summer. I even said I didn't expect anything to get done before the Hlinka Gretzky tournament finished. And then there's a couple of days with meeting the players, getting to know some of the players. So it's not like they're not doing anything. They're just not negotiating because there's no rush. The deadline is training camp. That said, it's not as easy as saying 8 years, $64 million. There's a lot of things that need to be negotiated, like signing bonuses, guaranteed money in case of a lockout, trade protection, all that kind of stuff is not negotiated overnight. I'm in no, I shouldn't say no rush, but I've got no worries.
Yeah, I agree in the sense that it makes me feel better that they are at least acknowledging the situation. You know, they're not like, oh, you know, we're going to keep that in-house and just leave it there, because that would tell me they're probably further apart. The fact that they're commenting on it and saying we're in negotiations, like, okay, so there's back and forth. Neither side has sat there and pushed the table and scooted back and said, fuck this. So that to me is good. And you know, like Dom said, just you know, vacations and stuff, the Hlinka Gretzky tournament. I wouldn't be overly surprised if we saw something like a Friday afternoon news dump, because that's what this team is known for. I don't expect it just because, or at least not this Friday. I wouldn't be shocked by it, but I also don't sit here and expect it. Like, I'm not sitting here refreshing Twitter anxiously going, where's the fucking contract? Why isn't it done yet? I got the notification set. It'll go off and I'll go, oh, look at that. Contract's done. Oh,
Yeah,
look,
and then
there are
he'll
the
be
terms.
and then he'll be calling me and say, "Quick, let's do a show tonight." But the thing is, the key words to me out of what Jacob said today was, "I hope he's ready for training camp," which means reading the tea leaves that it's going to be done for training camp, and they hope he's working out now and will be ready to go.
Yeah, that's how I took that. So, Wally has a good question here. Thoughts on, or maybe the next show. We'll get to it this time, Wally. The antitrust suit to allow junior players to jump to NCAA.
So here's the deal. The NCAA coaches met over the weekend, and 2/3 of them are against CHL players being allowed to play in the NCAA. 2/3 against. One player who played 2 exhibition games in the CHL, not even regular season games, has filed a suit in New York court. I forget which district it was, because the NCAA and Oscar Yelvik falls under this, Don's Lochmelis falls under this, played professional games over in Europe, but were allowed to play in the NCAA, whereas he is no longer allowed to because he played 2 exhibition games in what the NCAA is calling a professional league because it has players that play there under an NHL contract, like Jackson Edward, for example, last year. The coaches are now saying that they realize that they will probably lose the case, and CHL players will be allowed to play in the NCAA, even though they're dead against it. So what they would like is a negotiated settlement with the CHL. I know a lot of people are in the hockey world are predicting a mad rush of the best Canadian junior players to the NCAA, but I don't see it happening. You might get some jump. You might get some NCAA players come to the CHL, decide they don't like it, and can now go back to the NCAA. So it works both.
Yeah,
it works both ways. You have USHL players. See, I think that who it's going to hurt the most is the USHL players, because they can now come up to Canada, get a year of junior hockey in up here, and then be eligible to play in the NCAA. So this isn't a. I think it could hurt the CHL. I think it could hurt the USHL. Could definitely hurt the NAHL, and could potentially backfire on the NCAA. So,
yeah,
I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how it goes. But it could. I don't think this is a win-win for the NCAA. I really don't.
I don't either. I think anything like this, the fact that it gets to a player having to take this to a court and saying they need to figure this out, just makes everybody in all those leagues look like children.
Right, and it is class action, so it affects everybody, right?
So like, yeah, and that's the thing is like, especially now, at least before when there was no NAL money in the NCAA, like, okay, none of the players were getting paid. Once that ruling came down for the name and likeness, though, like NCAA players were going to start getting paid, period. So now
Right.
it's just an amateur league like everybody else when it comes to the CHL, when it comes to a pro, like they're a low-level pro league at that point that comes with an education. And whether you compensate them with a weekly stipend, whether you compensate them with scholarship money, whether you compensate them, in some way, shape, or form, like once they're over the age of 18 and they have control over what their name does, you lose a lot of that control. And it
Yeah.
shows that they act like children, and they also can't seem to think ahead. Why the fuck wasn't this brought up 3 years ago when the NAL settlement would come around? Why didn't anybody go, maybe we should sort our shit out? Could have avoided all this.
Yeah. And to me, the silence from the NHL right now is deafening because
I don't.
the NHL pumps a shitload of money into the CHL to the tune of minimum $15 million a year per league. That's 3 leagues. That's $45 million. Plus, they put in a couple of $1 million into each league for developing referees at their level and lower levels, right? Then there's money that don't think that the Guelph Storm didn't get paid a pretty penny by the NHL for allowing Matthew Poitras to go play in the NHL as a 19-year-old. That costs money. It costs money. Don't think that the Erie Otters didn't get a shitload of money for Connor McDavid to go play for the Edmonton Oilers instead of going back to junior for another year. That costs money.
Oh, yeah.
So the NHL does not want to see the CHL go away. So them being quiet, the silence is really deafening at this point from them.
I do understand it to a point, though, sitting here going, you guys are the lower level leagues. You guys got to sort your own shit out. But if they're dumping that kind of money into the CHL, there's no reason why they can't dump some money into, the U.S. leagues like the NCAA and other developmental leagues in the U.S. and whatnot. Like, if you want to have the best players in the game, you have to develop them the best way possible. And every single player is not going to develop the same way. So you have to have these options. And as the NHL, you have to be willing to contribute to those options. So it just, we'll have to see how it all unfolds, honestly. But it'll be interesting to sit back and watch. I am glad to say, not my circus, not my monkeys to that problem.
Well,
so,
yeah.
I'm not the one who has to negotiate it.
I have a stake in it, so
Oh yeah, but you're not at the negotiating table.
No.
So, let's see. CSR 45 says, "Do we know what Swayman's ask is for his contract?" I haven't heard anything solid anyway. Andrew, Dom, have you guys heard anything about what Swayman's camp is asking for?
Oh, there's so many rumors out there, and you know what? Nobody knows. The Bruins aren't saying anything. Louis Gross is not saying anything. So anything you read, anything you hear is just pure speculation. Because I saw some saying, $10 million. One thing I do want to say is, because of the 2 offer sheets today, talk of an offer sheet has come up saying, well, somebody could come in and offer Swayman 8 years at such and such money, and then it would cost them, 2 firsts, a second, and a third. No. First of all any other team can offer is 7 years, not 8 years. Okay. And the rule for figuring out compensation in the NHL is you take the total value of the contract. Okay, so let's say it was 7 years, $70 million. No, let's not say 70. 7 years, $63 million. That's $9 million AAV. That's not how you figure out compensation in terms of an offer sheet. It's the 63 million divided by 5 years, which now becomes 12.6 million. Am I right? If my math is right.
Roughly.
And that is what the compensation is based on. So it's the total value divided by 5 years, not the 7 years.
Yeah, and either way, though, I mean, the Bruins have the weak term to match, and they're gonna fucking match it.
I don't know. I think there's a point where they say no, give me the 4 first-round draft picks.
I was gonna say, unless they're getting 4 first-round draft picks in return, which, Andrew, I think even you can agree that 4 first-round draft picks for a guy who hasn't started 45 games in his NHL career, I would be shying away from that. They kind of need some first-round draft picks.
It's a great return on investment right there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how would you feel if you saw that they lost him to an offer sheet, but they got 4 first-round picks?
I mean, I would take the first-round draft picks. I mean, let's be honest.
And let's face it, the teams that could afford to take them right now, can they afford to give up 4 first-round draft picks? Can Anaheim afford to give up 4 first-round draft picks? Can San Jose afford to give up 4 first-round draft picks? Go up and down the list.
I think only one team in the bottom 3 of any given division. I think only one team that I can think of could afford to give up the 4 first-round picks. I think the Swayman contract would still put them over the cap, but they'd be able to get out and become cap compliant. And
what team is that?
It would really help what we were talking about earlier, the Montreal Canadiens.
That would be something.
That would ignite the rivalry in a half, though.
I don't know that Montreal would do it.
I'm not sure they would. I'm saying you were asking about giving up the 4 first-round picks. They could get away with doing that. Mm-hmm. They've been building, and they have young talent. They have enough young kids that, some second-rounders for the next couple of years wouldn't be – it wouldn't crush what they're building. I'll put it that way. So, and again, it would be – it would really reignite that rivalry. That's for damn sure.
That fan base would be unbearable if that happened.
Oh, God, no. I don't even want to think about it. Anyway, couple minutes left. Dom, do you have any other things to bring up here before we kind of revisit Andrew's cause here before we head out?
No, I just want to tell everybody, stay tuned. Chris and I will have some news for new upcoming stuff probably in early September. That's as much as I'll say for now, so just stay tuned, follow along.
We got some big stuff in the works.
Yeah,
so we got some big stuff coming, so follow the show on Twitter. Follow, YouTube is always a good place. You get notified when we go live, all that fun stuff. Andrew, thank you again so much for jumping on here. I'm glad that you're pushing for such a good cause. If I had the time, I don't even get to go to the grocery store anymore. I have to order everything. I would have had something prepared to do the challenge as we were rounding out the show here, but I want to let you kind of re-explain kind of what your goal is, what you've been through, kind of share your story again for those who weren't with us in the beginning, and what people can do to help and kind of push your cause along here.
Sure. Well, I just want to say thank you both again for having me. It was awesome talking hockey with you guys. You guys are Bruins experts. Like I said, I'm more of the surface level, not so much the inner workings of the Bruins. But it was great, just talking with you guys. But for those that weren't with us at the beginning, I'm raising awareness for a condition I have called gastroparesis. Basically, it's the paralyzation of the stomach, meaning you can't eat, digest, or absorb nutrients. I was diagnosed at age 11. For context, I'm 27. So I've lived with it pretty much the large majority of my childhood and growing up. So my two main symptoms were constant nausea and vomiting about 10 to 15 times a day. Had to really rely on, just kind of forcing myself to eat and hoping that I gained any nutrients. Diet of protein shakes and liquids and all that, fun stuff as they say. But luckily, a few years ago, I received a device called the gastric stimulator, which helps control my symptoms. So luckily, I'm okay today. But unfortunately, the device doesn't work for everybody. So we're still working towards a cure. So in 2016, I launched my own version of the Ice Bucket Challenge called the Gastroparesis Pie Face Challenge, where you simply just smash a whipped cream pie in your face instead of throwing an ice bucket on your head. And since then, pies have been thrown across the globe. We've gotten some athletes involved. And most importantly, $14,000 has been raised for a nonprofit for gastroparesis. And awareness continues to grow each and every day. And that's all we can, that's all we can ask for, especially, knowing that there's people that were worse off than myself that have to rely on being tube fed. So I was really one of the lucky ones and one of the fortunate ones. So just trying to do anything that we can to get the word out and help those that are worse off than me.
Always a good cause to do that. And just out of curiosity for some who are just learning about this condition, is this something that you're born with? Is it something that you can develop over time? And obviously you said you were diagnosed when you were 11. So for those 11 years where you were undiagnosed, were you still going through those symptoms? And kind of what was that process like, as much as you're comfortable sharing, of course?
Sure. Yeah. Anything. So the first, you can get gastroparesis. You can, develop it suddenly. You can be born with it. There's no telling where you get diagnosed. But for me, I lived a normal childhood up until 6th grade. And then I had just started middle school, and I came down with what I thought was a normal stomach bug, and it just got progressively worse. And, going from doctor to doctor, no one could tell me what was going wrong. Even in Boston, which many consider to be, one of the medical, capitals in the country, it was just frustrating. But I got diagnosed 4 months later after going what they call a gastric emptying test. You basically eat food and they track it through radioactive dye on a screen. So that's when they formally diagnosed me with gastroparesis.
Wow. That does not sound fun. It's the only thing I can really come up with. I mean, I'm like Kevin, I'm a huge eater. So
yeah,
I
believe me.
Now, Andrew, is there a website or something people can go to
Sure.
to donate or do something? If you can share that with us.
Sure. The website to donate is g-pact.org, GPACT. They're a small nonprofit. They're made up of all volunteers that all actually have gastroparesis, and they fund research. They conduct free resources for patients. They give you meal cards. So when you go to a restaurant, this was always an issue that I faced. When you go out to eat, you want to try to, maybe you're feeling adventurous and feel up to eating. So instead of getting the normal portions that you would get at a restaurant, they give you this little card that you can present to them, hey, this person needs a reduced portion size, don't charge them fully, stuff like that. So they do a bunch of free resources and stuff like that. So they're a really great organization.
Awesome.
Hopefully restaurants know more about it and that kind of thing, and at least some of the bigger, well-known chain restaurants or something, they have an option. I don't know if that was an issue that you ran into a lot trying to go out to eat, but I've never worked in the restaurant industry, so I can't say that it's ever been thing I've come across. So hopefully those types of that type of help is getting more and more out there. And like I said, the awareness part, that's definitely helping, because I had never even heard of it myself, which is why I was so glad to have you on here. And, you know, like Dom said, we've got a lot more stuff in the works. Hopefully we can do more to help promote the cause here. Those watching on YouTube can see the website, g-pact.org, in the bottom corner here. I will also include it and some more information in the show description of the pod, as well as Andrew's social, where you can reach out to him with any questions. Again, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Dom will be here again next week, so I'm sure I'll come up with something to give you shit about.
You always do.
I always do. And with that, the last thing I've got is go Bees.
Go Bees.
Go Bees.
Andrew, I'll let